In the same way that there is a GPS and a structure which actually isn't a two-dimensional structure, it's a three-dimensional structure which wraps our planet. There's also a three-dimensional structure behind all of wealth. And I call it the Wealth Lighthouse. It has 9 levels, it has 4 sides. And every one of us is in one of the sides, which means we have a different view from other people. We also are at a different level, which means we have a different view based on how high we are. If you would imagine this lighthouse as you sitting in an aeroplane, you're flying and you hear a little voice in your head, because we all have little voices in our heads. And you hear it telling you to bear a little to the south, go up like 1,000 feet. And at some point you get that voice in your head is actually coming from a remote place. It's coming from a control tower. Each of us have that voice, and we can upgrade that voice. So we have a voice that's saying, I'm fearful, and I'm worried. You can upgrade that voice so it comes out different. And it all depends on where you are within this lighthouse. So think of the lighthouse like collective unconscious. We're all in it. We all have our planes flying around. We're all seeing things in a certain way, and then we're sharing from that place. First of all, let's just talk about the 4 sides of the square. The 4 sides of the square are linked to the 4 seasons: spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Each of us have a particular genius, which is linked to one of these 4. So these are the same 4 that people like Plato, people like Carl Jung saw as being key drivers. In fact, even today, we still name seasons these ways. We still have the same structure in terms of how things actually move within in industry. Even within a relationship, they always move through these same 4. Some of us have a dynamo genius, which means that we're very good at creating things. We're not so good at finishing things. We're not so good at the detail. Dynamo geniuses have a particular way that they should go about naturally going through each of these 9 levels. That's different from a blaze genius, which is like summer season. These are the people that are much more extroverted. They're people who love people, but may not be quite as creative. And so they want to connect with people who are more creative, but they're going to be doing different things naturally. They're great at creating partnerships. They're great at going out and networking, but they'll always fall down in the areas that they aren't so strong within the geniuses. You have tempo genius, which is autumn energy. So when you take the assessment that we have, maybe you come out at the autumn energy, which means you're really good at serving. People like Warren Buffett, people like George Soros, who've made all their money in trading, in timing, actually made their money in totally different ways from going out and creating anything. And so there's opposites of having your head in the clouds, which is dynamo, and ear to the ground, which is your tempo. And then you have the winter energy, which is steel. And these are the introverts. So they're going to leverage. Everything comes from value and leverage. And value is about creating the flow of the river, which is like how fast can you create this flow. All value is created from either innovation, which is what dynamos do well, or timing, which is what tempos do well. And then that value is then leveraged. And the leverage is like the width of the river. So whereas the value of the river will change the speed, the leverage of the river will change the width of it will change the volume. And all leverage happens either by multiplying, which is being able to make things simple and make many, or magnifying, which is to end up making it complicated but making one, like one brand or one team. Every one of us has got one of these opposites. And if you fold your arms, it's the same thing. It's like you can only fold it one way. And if you try and do the opposite, it doesn't feel natural. So you're not going to just do it naturally anyway. The most important thing is when you know which side you are, you now know that you have a natural path to be able to move far more easily through these 9 levels. The lighthouse has 9 levels, and it starts in the basement, which is infrared. Infrared is the victim, and the victim is the person who is going to go negative cash flow every month. And sometimes there are people who were doing great. In fact, they were even millionaires after selling their business, but then they started going to negative cash flow while they're looking for the next thing, and suddenly they couldn't see opportunity anymore. They were just seeing heat waves, and they're in stress. Other people that lose their job and they go into that state as well. This is when you're drowning, and this is not the time to go out there trying to build a business, because the worst place to build a boat is when you're drowning in the sea. You got to get back to land first. You can build it from there, then you'll be ready to go. So from infrared, it goes up the next level, which is red. Red is the survivor. The survivor is almost more dangerous than the victim, because the victim can't stay there forever. At some point, you're going to run out of money, or you're going to take on too much debt. But the survivor can be there forever, because it's the person who has just enough money to have nothing. You can go through your whole life surviving and then suddenly retire and realize you don't have the money there for that. So there's very specific steps to get out of that, baby steps, which means that anyone can do them, to get to the next level up, which is the worker. And that's the orange level. So you go from infrared to red to orange, from victim to survivor to worker. The worker doesn't need to know how an industry works yet, but they're willing to give value into that industry. And for some of us, we were in an industry that had flow, or a business that was working well, and we had a job. We lost that job. And now we're like, wow, how do I get another job? But when you're thinking as a worker, it's not about how do you get the job. is how do you be of value to the industry or the people you really would love to work with? And there's always a way to do that. And not even going through the job market. There's actually very specific steps to be of value to other people, and that's all part and parcel of the steps we go through. So by the time you get to Worker, you have the ability to be able to step into any new industry you're really passionate about and take the steps up to earn the right to get on the boat. And that's when we get to the Enterprise Prism, which is when you're no longer needing to swim, because you know how to swim, and you never have to worry about drowning, to then get to the next level up, which is Enterprise Prism, which is now where you're actually on a boat, you're on a ship. And the first step there, which is a smaller boat, is the player. Work and play is the opposite. The player is the one on the pitch now. He's part of the game. And the player at that level, yellow level, is the one like music, like playing the guitar. If you stop playing, the music stops. But as long as you're playing, you can actually run your own business, and there's very specific steps to get to that level. Then you get to green level, where you have to unlearn how to do it all yourself so you can have other people doing it for you. Green level is a performer, like performers in a band. And so now everyone's playing one thing. From going from the yellow to green, where you've now actually got people showing up for the band instead of for any one person, you can be interchangeable. You can actually step off the stage and the music's still going. And that then allows you to go to the next level up, blue level, which is where many people would love to be, and that's the conductor. The conductor is the one who's making all the music, but they're not even touching an instrument. This is the person who has multiple businesses now. They didn't get to multiple businesses by trying to have multiple streams of income. Because a lot of us are trying to create multiple streams, like I've got a job and now I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And it feels just like trying to push up 2 or 3 cars up a hill at the same time. Because you're the one trying to do all of it, it doesn't work because you can't keep everything going. So multiple streams of income is a myth, it's an illusion. It's not multiple streams of income, it's multiple teams of income. Anyone who's got multiple streams has got different teams looking after each one, and as a result of that, they're being maintained just like a garden needs to be maintained. And that way, at conductor level, the conductor's not even facing the audience anymore. The conductor's facing their performers, and every performer wants to go work with the conductor. So it's about earning the right up to that level, which means knowing how these other levels work first and having experienced them, just like knowing first gear needs the second, needs the third, and then you're at the top of the Enterprise Prism. Now here's where it gets interesting. We all hear about people out there who are making a difference in life, people who want to leave a legacy. All of that happens in the final prism. The final prism is the Alchemy Prism, and it's called Alchemy because this is where money is actually made. The level above composer is trustee. A little bit like if you're listening to a concert in a concert hall. That concert hall got there because there were trustees to the concert hall that were basically giving their good name in to make sure that this was a place that was worth value. Someone like a Warren Buffett, someone like a Richard Branson, they're doing more than just being a blue level composer where they just have multiple businesses. They're out there actually lending their name to an entire cause or an entire industry. Warren Buffett was one of the spokespeople when the financial crisis came to say, I believe in America. And people were then willing to trust him because he had more trust than even the government at that point. So when you actually have someone at trustee level, that's someone that's at indigo level. So we're going higher up now. And at indigo level, that's someone who actually is able to use their trust in a way that can actually make money far more easily. People will go to Richard Branson and pay him millions just for the Virgin brand. And he's not having to do anything because his trust is so strong. For many of us, we haven't built our trust up yet. And you've got to build your trust at each of these levels to allow yourself to then have that currency, to have others who will then be willing to follow you. Then you can go to the next level up, which some people in life will get to, which is a composer. The composer makes the music. What's interesting today is we live in a world where many of us are playing our instruments as hard and as well as we can, but somehow the music's just not coming out right. And that's because the composition we're playing is already off key. It was for another time. And so as a result, we're like, why is this not working? Why do we still not have the money? We have entrusted our composition, which is the music we're playing, to politicians, to governments that never proved themselves to us that they know how to compose in the first place. They proved how they get elected and how they can get into power, but that doesn't mean they understand the financial markets, so they understand how to bring people out of poverty or how to support the environment. And as a result of that, we're at the moment seeing new people showing up to say, well, I'll take on that role. There are some of the wealthiest people in the world today are actually becoming those composers. There's others who actually didn't have to go out and be a billionaire to do that. We hear of people, whether it's someone like a Steve Jobs, who actually changed the whole way we actually connect today, or someone like a Nelson Mandela, who actually changed an entire country, that actually earned their way in to that level, at the composer level. And then the final level, which is up where the light is, that's the legend. If you think about a map has symbols on them. which become part of a legend, where you don't even need to mention the name anymore because you recognize the symbol. Every time there's any inflection point in the world, you will notice that the people out there who are the composers will always bring in the legends. When Obama was last being elected, he talked about Martin Luther King, right? He talked about Nelson Mandela. The legends that often, those legends, they became legends after they died. In fact, even living legends have their biggest risk being their loss of life. That's why they all have bodyguards, because there's always someone somewhere who actually sees what they stand for in their cause and actually takes the opposite view. The most important thing is that at every one of these steps, it's not about your life getting perfect, it's about you going deeper in the ocean, which means you're going to have higher highs, but you're also going to have lower lows. It goes both ways. And we just get to choose how deep in the ocean we want to go and how big a difference we want to make. Most importantly, at every step, we need to earn the right to get to the next step. And then we can actually then, as a result of that, make the difference we want to make in the world, and then to become the light. In summary, you have the 4 sides, which are the 4 geniuses, and you have a natural way then to be able to move up the lighthouse. It goes from the foundation prism, which is infrared, victim, and then red, which is survivor, and then orange, which is worker. Once you've actually really earned the right to step into the enterprise prism, because you know how to manage your own personal flow, you're at the center of your personal flow and the life you want to live, you then can get into the enterprise prism, which is yellow level player, and then green level performer, which is one person doing all things, all people doing one thing, and then the conductor, blue level, that actually is attracting the performers. And from that, which is how all money in our markets flow, you then end up with the top 3, which is how markets are even created, how money is made, how the rules are made, which is a trustee, which is indigo level. And then it is violet level, which is the composer. And the composer is the one that prints the money, it's the one that makes up the rules, sets the laws. And then above composer, you have ultraviolet, which is now above the visible spectrum, just like infrared is below the visible spectrum. And that is the legend. The ultraviolet, that energy, that vibration, that lives on well beyond our lifetime. And that's how we can all leave a legacy that future generations will always look back to.